The morning sun cast long shadows across the grounds of Buckingham Palace as Catherine, the Princess of Wales, stood before an ornate mahogany display case in the private royal vault. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached toward the velvet cushion that held one of the most iconic pieces in the royal collection, Princess Diana's sapphire and diamond necklace. The same necklace that had adorned Diana's neck at countless state dinners and charity galas, capturing the hearts of millions around the world. Kate had entered the vault that morning with a specific purpose. The upcoming state banquet for the visiting French president required her to select appropriate jewelry from the royal collection, a task that usually filled her with quiet excitement. But today felt different. Today, she found herself drawn to a particular corner of the vault, where Diana's personal collection was kept under special care. The sapphire necklace seemed to call to her, its deep blue stones catching the carefully controlled lighting of the vault. Kate had seen it many times in photographs, Diana wearing it with her famous midnight blue velvet gown, the stones perfectly complementing her eyes. But seeing it in person, so close she could touch it, brought an unexpected wave of emotion. As the Princess of Wales, Kate had inherited not just a title, but a legacy. She often felt the weight of comparisons to her late mother-in-law, the constant measuring of her every gesture against Diana's memory. The media never tired of drawing parallels, how she held her children, how she dressed, how she engaged with the public. It was a shadow she had learned to live with, even embrace at times, but moments like these brought the reality of it all into sharp focus. Kate's lady-in-waiting, Sarah Pemberton, stood respectfully at a distance, understanding the significance of this moment. She had served the royal household for over 20 years and had witnessed many such private moments of reflection. Sarah watched as Kate slowly extended her hand toward the necklace, her movements careful and reverent. The moment Kate's fingers made contact with the cool surface of the sapphires, something shifted in the atmosphere of the vault. It was subtle at first, a change in the air pressure perhaps, or simply the weight of the moment settling around them. Kate closed her eyes briefly, feeling the smooth stones beneath her fingertips, imagining all the moments this necklace had witnessed. Unknown to Kate, security cameras throughout the palace captured this moment, as they captured everything within the royal residences. In the security office, guards went about their routine monitoring, barely glancing at the princess in the vault. It was a normal occurrence, after all, for members of the royal family to visit the collection. But this particular footage would soon become the subject of intense scrutiny. Kate lifted the necklace gently from its cushion, holding it up to the light. The craftsmanship was exquisite, each diamond perfectly cut and set, the sapphires a shade of blue that seemed almost impossible in nature. She had worn many beautiful pieces from the royal collection, but none had ever felt quite like this. This wasn't just jewelry. It was history, memory, and responsibility all woven together in precious metal and stone. As she held the necklace, Kate's mind wandered to her first meeting with William, all those years ago at St. Andrews University. She had been a normal girl then, with normal dreams and expectations for her life. Never in her wildest imaginings had she pictured herself here, holding jewelry that had belonged to one of the most famous women in the world, preparing to wear it as the next Princess of Wales. The weight of the necklace in her hands was surprisingly substantial. Diana had worn it with such ease, making it look effortless despite its obvious value and significance. Kate wondered if she would ever achieve that same natural grace, that ability to wear the crown jewels as if they were simple accessories rather than priceless artifacts of British history. Sarah stepped forward slightly, sensing that Kate might need assistance. "Your Royal Highness," she said softly, "shall I help you try it on?" Kate nodded, turning to face the full-length mirror that stood in the corner of the vault. Sarah carefully took the necklace and stood behind Kate, preparing to fasten the clasp. As the necklace settled against Kate's throat, both women fell silent. The reflection in the mirror was striking, Kate's dark hair and fair complexion providing a different but equally beautiful setting for the jewels than Diana's blonde beauty had offered. For a moment, Kate allowed herself to simply stand there, feeling the weight of the necklace against her skin. She thought of Diana, of the woman she had never met, but whose presence she felt constantly. She thought of William, who rarely spoke of his mother, but whose loss shaped everything about him. She thought of her own children, who would grow up knowing their grandmother only through stories and photographs and pieces like this necklace. The morning light shifted, sending new reflections dancing across the vault walls. Kate studied her reflection, seeing not just herself, but the continuum of royal women who had worn these jewels before her. Each had faced their own challenges, their own moments of doubt and triumph. The necklace was a tangible link to that history, a reminder that she was part of something larger than herself. As Sarah adjusted the necklace slightly, ensuring it sat perfectly, neither woman noticed the figure that had appeared in the doorway of the vault. King Charles III stood there, having arrived for his own morning appointment with the crown jeweler. He had expected to find the vault empty at this early hour, and the sight of his daughter-in-law wearing his first wife's necklace stopped him in his tracks. Charles's face was unreadable as he watched Kate in the mirror. The years had taught him to keep his emotions carefully controlled, especially within the palace walls where privacy was an illusion. But seeing Diana's necklace around Kate's neck stirred something deep within him. Memories of happier times, of state dinners when he and Diana had still been trying to make their marriage work, of the way the sapphires had caught the light as Diana laughed at someone's joke. Kate, still absorbed in her own reflection, hadn't noticed Charles's arrival. She was adjusting the necklace slightly, tilting her head to see how it caught the light. Sarah, however, had spotted the king and dropped into a deep curtsy, her movement alerting Kate to his presence. Kate turned quickly, her hand flying to the necklace at her throat. "Your Majesty," she said, beginning to curtsy, but Charles raised a hand to stop her. For a long moment, grandfather and daughter-in-law regarded each other across the space of the vault. The silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken words and complicated emotions. Charles's eyes were fixed on the necklace, and Kate found herself holding her breath, uncertain of what his reaction would be. The relationship between Charles and Kate had always been cordial but formal. Unlike his easy warmth with his grandchildren or his obvious affection for his sons, Charles maintained a certain distance with Kate. She had attributed it to his natural reserve, his generation's approach to family relationships. But standing here now, wearing Diana's necklace, she wondered if there was more to it. Charles took a step forward, then another, his movements deliberate and measured. Kate remained still, her hand still resting lightly on the necklace. Sarah had faded into the background, making herself as invisible as possible while remaining present should she be needed. When Charles finally spoke, his voice was soft, almost inaudible. "It suits you," he said simply. Kate felt a rush of relief, but it was short-lived. Charles's expression remained complex, a mixture of emotions playing across his features. He moved closer, close enough that Kate could see the fine lines around his eyes, the slight tremor in his hand as he reached out, not toward her, but toward the necklace. His fingers stopped just short of touching the sapphires, hovering in the air between them. Kate could see the struggle in his face, the battle between past and present, between memory and reality. This was more than just a piece of jewelry to him. It was a tangible reminder of a time in his life that had been both magical and tragic. "She wore it to the state dinner for President Mitterrand," Charles said suddenly, his voice taking on a distant quality. 1988, I believe it was. She had just returned from a tour of Australia, and she was glowing with confidence. The French president was completely charmed, but then everyone always was. Kate remained silent, sensing that this was a rare moment of openness from her father-in-law. Charles so rarely spoke of Diana, especially in personal terms. The official line had always been respectful, but distant, acknowledging her contributions to the monarchy while carefully avoiding the more complicated truths of their relationship. She had a way of making everything she wore seem special, Charles continued, his hand still hovering near the necklace. It wasn't just about beauty, though she certainly had that. It It was something else, something indefinable. The jewels were just accessories to her natural radiance. Kate felt the weight of comparison settling on her shoulders again, heavier than the necklace itself. But when she looked at Charles's face, she saw not criticism, but something else, a wistfulness, perhaps, or a recognition of time's passage. "I try to honor her memory," Kate said softly, the words coming unbidden. "In my work, with the children. I know I can never be her, but I hope no." Charles interrupted, his voice sharp enough to make both women flinch. Then, more gently, "No, Catherine. You must never try to be her. That way lies only disappointment, for you and for everyone else." The use of her full name, rather than the usual Kate, signaled the seriousness of his words. Charles finally lowered his hand, clasping both hands behind his back in his characteristic pose. "Diana was Diana," he said, choosing his words carefully. "Unique, irreplaceable, gone. You are Catherine, and that is who you must be. The monarchy needs you to be yourself, not a shadow of someone else." Kate nodded, feeling tears prick at the corners of her eyes. It was perhaps the most personal thing Charles had ever said to her, and she understood the gift he was offering, permission to forge her own path, to wear the jewels and the title without trying to fill someone else's shoes. But Charles wasn't finished. His next words would change everything, sending ripples through the palace that would be felt for months to come. "The necklace," he said, his voice taking on a formal tone. "You should wear it to the state dinner next week." Kate's eyes widened. The jewels worn to state occasions were carefully chosen, each piece selected for its diplomatic significance and historical importance. For her to wear Diana's necklace to such a high-profile event would send a message to the public, to the press, to the world. "Your Majesty," Kate began, uncertain. "Are you sure?" "The protocol be damned," Charles said, with a flash of the rebellious spirit that had often put him at odds with his mother. "You are the Princess of Wales. The necklace belongs to the Princess of Wales. It should be worn, not hidden away in a vault like a museum piece." Sarah gasped audibly at this breach of normal procedure. The wearing of Diana's jewelry had always been a sensitive subject, managed with careful diplomacy and strategic timing. For Charles to make such a declaration, so spontaneously, was unprecedented. But Charles wasn't done. He turned to Sarah, his manner becoming more businesslike. "Mrs. Pemberton, please inform the crown jeweler that the Princess of Wales will be wearing the sapphire suite to next week's state dinner. The necklace, the earrings, and the bracelet. The full set." Sarah curtsied deeply. "Yes, Your Majesty. Shall I inform the communications office as well?" Charles paused, considering. The communications office would need to prepare for the inevitable media storm that would follow Kate's appearance in Diana's jewels. It would be front-page news around the world, analyzed and dissected from every angle. No, he decided. Let it be a surprise. Sometimes the best way to handle the media is to give them no time to prepare their narratives. Kate felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. This was more than just permission to wear a necklace. This was Charles making a public statement about her place in the royal family, about the continuity of the monarchy, about moving forward while honoring the past. "Thank you, Your Majesty," she managed to say, her voice steady despite the emotions churning inside her. Charles looked at her for a long moment, and Kate thought she saw a flicker of something. Approval? Affection? In his eyes. Then he turned abruptly and walked toward the door of the vault. But at the threshold, he paused and looked back. "Catherine," he said, and his voice was gentle now. "My mother once told me that the weight of the crown is not in the gold and jewels, but in the knowledge of all who wore it before. The same is true of that necklace. Wear it with pride, but remember, it's just jewelry. What matters is the woman wearing it." With that, he was gone, leaving Kate and Sarah alone in the vault. The two women stood in silence for a moment, both processing what had just occurred. "Well," Sarah finally said, her professional composure returning. "That was unexpected." Kate laughed, a slightly hysterical edge to the sound. "That's one way of putting it." She turned back to the mirror, seeing the necklace with new eyes. It was still beautiful, still heavy with history, but somehow Charles's words had lifted some of the weight from it. As Sarah helped her remove the necklace and return it to its case, Kate's mind was already racing ahead to the state dinner. She knew the reaction would be intense. Comparisons to Diana would be inevitable, every gesture and expression analyzed for meaning. But she also felt a new sense of purpose, a clearer understanding of her role. The morning sun had climbed higher now, flooding the vault with golden light. As they prepared to leave, Kate took one last look at the necklace in its case. In a week's time, she would wear it in public for the first time, stepping fully into the legacy of the Princess of Wales while remaining unmistakably herself. What she didn't know was that Charles's spontaneous decision would set in motion a series of events that would challenge the very foundations of the modern monarchy. The security footage of this morning's encounter was already being reviewed by palace officials, concerned about the break in protocol. Questions were being raised, meetings scheduled, and strategies debated. But for now, in this moment, Kate felt only a sense of possibility. She had touched Diana's necklace and found not a burden, but a bridge between past and present, between who the monarchy had been and what it could become. As she left the vault, the sapphires safely locked away until the state dinner, Kate didn't notice the small security camera in the corner, its red light blinking steadily. The footage it had captured would soon become the most watched video in royal history, the moment when everything changed captured in digital clarity. The palace halls were beginning to stir with the morning's activities as Kate made her way back to her apartments. Staff members bowed and curtsied as she passed, but she barely noticed, her mind still in the vault with Charles's words echoing in her ears. William was waiting for her in their private sitting room, already dressed for his morning engagements. He looked up as she entered, immediately noticing something different about her demeanor. "How was the vault?" he asked, setting aside his briefing papers. "Did you find something for the dinner?" Kate sat down beside him, taking his hand in hers. "Your father was there," she said simply. William's expression sharpened. "Oh, and he told me to wear your mother's sapphire necklace. The whole suite, actually." William went very still. Kate could feel the tension in his hand, see the careful control he was exerting over his emotions. Diana was always a complicated subject for William, a mixture of love, loss, and the complex feelings that came from having his mother's memory turn into public property. He said that. William's voice was neutral, giving nothing away. He said I should wear it as myself, not as someone trying to be her, Kate explained, watching her husband's face carefully. For a long moment, William said nothing. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. Not the practice smile he wore for public engagements, but the real one that Kate knew was reserved for their private moments. "Good," he said finally. "It's about time." Kate felt the last of her tension drain away. William's approval meant everything. This was his mother's necklace, his heritage as much as hers. If he was comfortable with it, then she could wear it with confidence. "It's going to cause quite a stir," she warned him. William's smile turned slightly mischievous. "When has that ever stopped us?" The week leading up to the state dinner passed in a whirlwind of preparations. Within the palace walls, the news of Charles's decision had spread like wildfire through the carefully controlled channels of royal communication. The Lord Chamberlain's office was in overdrive, trying to manage the protocol implications of the king's spontaneous directive. Never before had such a significant decision about the royal jewels been made without extensive consultation and planning. In the communications office, Jason Hartwell, the palace's chief press secretary, sat at the head of a long conference table surrounded by his team. The morning sun streaming through the tall windows did nothing to lighten the tense atmosphere in the room. Before them lay spread out various documents, photos, and press clippings, all related to Diana's jewelry and its previous public appearances. "We have exactly 3 days before the dinner," Jason said, his usually calm demeanor showing signs of strain. 3 days to prepare for what will undoubtedly be the biggest royal fashion moment since Diana herself. His deputy, Margaret Shun, looked up from her tablet where she had been scrolling through social media metrics. The French state visit is already generating significant interest. If we add Diana's necklace to the mix without proper preparation, we risk overshadowing the diplomatic purposes of the event entirely. That's precisely the king's intention, I believe, said Sir Robert Pembroke, the Lord Chamberlain, who had joined the meeting specifically to address this unprecedented situation. His Majesty was quite clear, no advance notice to the media. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. They all understood the implications. Without the ability to brief friendly journalists or prepare context pieces, they would be at the mercy of whatever narrative the media chose to create. Meanwhile, in another part of the palace, Kate was in her private study with her personal assistant, reviewing her schedule for the state dinner. The weight of what was to come hadn't fully hit her yet, but she could feel it building, like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. The French president and his wife will arrive at 7 p.m., her assistant, Emma, was saying. You and His Royal Highness will greet them in the blue drawing room before proceeding to the reception. Kate nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. She kept thinking about that moment in the vault, Charles's unexpected words, the feel of the sapphires under her fingers. She had worn significant jewelry before, tiaras, historic necklaces, pieces worth millions of pounds. But this was different. This was Diana's necklace. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Emma answered it and returned with a sealed envelope. From His Majesty's office, she said, handing it to Kate. Kate opened it carefully, recognizing Charles's personal stationery. His handwriting, elegant but difficult to read, covered the page. Catherine, I have been reflecting on our conversation in the vault. I want you to know that my decision was not made lightly or in haste, despite how it may have appeared. For too long, we have allowed the past to dictate our present. Diana's jewelry has become almost mythical in its absence from public view. By wearing it, you will help to restore it to what it should be, beautiful objects worn by a beautiful woman in service to the crown. There will be those who question this decision, both within the palace and without. Pay them no mind. You have proven yourself more than worthy of the title you bear. It is time the world sees that we have moved forward, not by forgetting the past, but by honoring it while embracing the future. Wear the necklace with pride. You have my complete support. Charles or Kate read the letter twice, then carefully folded it and placed it in her desk drawer. The king's written support was unusual and significant. It suggested he had anticipated pushback from within the royal household and wanted to ensure she knew where he stood. That evening, William returned from a day of engagements looking tired but curious about the ongoing preparations. He found Kate in their living room, surrounded by fabric swatches and photos. Choosing a dress to match the most famous necklace in royal history, he asked, settling beside her on the sofa. Kate showed him the options her stylist had presented. The necklace is such a statement piece. The dress needs to complement it without competing. William picked up one of the photos, a midnight blue gown remarkably similar to the one Diana had worn with the necklace. Not this one, he said firmly. Too obvious. The press would have a field day with side-by-side comparisons. Kate nodded. She had already ruled that one out for the same reason. I was thinking this one, she said, showing him a sketch of an elegant champagne-colored gown with a simple neckline that would showcase the necklace perfectly. It's beautiful, William agreed, and completely different from anything Mum wore with it. That's important. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before William spoke again. You know, I've been thinking about what Papa said, about wearing the jewelry as yourself, not as someone else. Kate waited, knowing William rarely opened up about his feelings regarding his mother. Mum would have liked you, he said suddenly. She would have appreciated that you're not trying to be her. She hated pretense, hated people trying to be something they weren't. She would have respected your authenticity. Kate felt tears prick her eyes. In all their years together, William had never directly compared her to Diana or speculated on what his mother would have thought of her. She also would have been delighted to see her jewelry being worn again, William continued. She saw them as tools, in a way, beautiful tools that helped her do her job, connect with people, make them feel special. They've been locked away too long. The emotion in his voice was carefully controlled, but Kate could hear it nonetheless. She took his hand, squeezing it gently. "I'll do my best to honor that," she promised. "You will," William said with certainty. "You already do, every day." As the night of the state dinner approached, the palace machinery moved into high gear. The state dining room was transformed into a glittering showcase of British hospitality. Crystal chandeliers were cleaned until they sparkled like diamonds. The finest china and silver were polished to perfection, and florists worked through the night to create centerpieces that were works of art in themselves. In the kitchen, the head chef supervised an army of sous chefs preparing the elaborate menu that had been months in planning. Every dish had been selected for its diplomatic significance as well as its culinary excellence. The wine cellars had been rated for vintages that would impress even the French palate. But despite all this activity, there was an undercurrent of tension running through the palace. Word had leaked, as word always did, that something significant was planned for the evening. The staff didn't know the details, but they could sense that this state dinner would be different from others. In the security office, Thomas Mitchell, head of royal protection, was reviewing the plans for the evening with his team. The security for state dinners was always extensive, but tonight felt different. "I want extra coverage on the Princess of Wales," he instructed his team. "If she's wearing what I think she's wearing, the media attention will be unprecedented. We need to be prepared for any scenario." His deputy, Sarah Williams, nodded. "The French security team has been briefed. They understand the sensitivity of the situation." Thomas frowned. "Do they? Because I'm not sure we fully understand it ourselves. This isn't just about protecting physical security. This is about managing a moment that will be analyzed and reanalyzed for years to come." 2 days before the dinner, an unexpected complication arose. Lady Victoria Pemberton, one of the senior ladies-in-waiting and a cousin of the late Queen Elizabeth, requested a private audience with the king. She was shown into his study at Buckingham Palace, where Charles was working on his correspondence. "Your Majesty," she began after the formal pleasantries, "I feel I must speak frankly about the matter of the sapphire necklace." Charles set down his pen, his expression neutral. "Go on, Victoria." "There are those of us who feel that displaying Diana's jewelry so prominently at a state occasion might overshadow the diplomatic purposes of the event." The French president," Charles interrupted smoothly, "will be perfectly capable of handling the presence of a necklace, however famous it might be. The French understand style and symbolism better than most." Lady Victoria pressed on. "But surely, sir, the comparisons, the media circus, it will turn the evening into a spectacle about the past rather than a celebration of our current alliance." Charles stood, moving to the window that overlooked the palace gardens. "Victoria, for over 2 decades, we have treated Diana's memory like something to be managed, controlled, kept at arm's length. We have hidden her jewelry away as if it were cursed rather than celebrating it as part of our heritage." He turned back to face her. "Catherine has proven herself time and again. She has modernized the monarchy while respecting its traditions. She has given us 3 heirs. She has conducted herself with dignity and grace under scrutiny that would break most people. If she cannot wear the jewelry of her predecessor, then what message does that send?" Lady Victoria had no ready answer to this. "The decision is made," Charles continued, his tone final. "The Princess of Wales will wear the sapphire suite, and she will wear it magnificently. And perhaps, finally, we can move past this notion that Diana's memory is something to be feared rather than honored." After Lady Victoria left, clearly unhappy but unable to argue further, Charles returned to his desk. He picked up his phone and placed a call to his son. "William?" "Yes, I've just had Victoria here trying to talk me out of it. No, I sent her away with a flea in her ear. Just wanted to warn you that there might be some grumbling from the old guard. Yes, tell Catherine not to worry. My decision stands." In her apartment, Kate overheard Williams into the conversation. When he hung up, he found her looking anxious. "The dinosaurs are restless," he said with a wry smile, using his private nickname for the more traditional courtiers. "But Papa's holding firm." "Maybe we should reconsider," Kate said. If it's causing this much controversy before I've even worn it, no, William said firmly. Papa's right. It's time. And, more importantly, you want to wear it. I saw your face when you tried it on. It belongs on you. The morning of a state dinner dawned crisp and clear. Kate woke early, unable to sleep despite the long day ahead. She stood at the window of their apartment, watching the early morning joggers in Hyde Park, the city beginning to stir to life. Today would be a marathon of preparation. Hair, makeup, final dress fittings, briefings on the French delegation, protocol reminders, all leading up to the moment when she would step out wearing Diana's necklace for the world to see. Her phone buzzed with a message from her mother, Carol. Thinking of you today, darling. So proud. Dad sends his love too. Kate smiled. Her parents had always been her anchor, keeping her grounded despite the surreal nature of her life. She quickly typed back a reply, then set the phone aside. Today, she needed to focus. The hairdresser arrived first, followed by the makeup artist and the team from Alexander McQueen who would make final adjustments to the gown. Kate submitted to their ministrations with practiced ease, her mind elsewhere as they worked their magic. Emma appeared periodically with updates. The French delegation has landed at Heathrow. The protesters in Parliament Square have been moved to a designated area. The first guests are beginning to arrive for the reception. As the afternoon wore on, the anticipation in the palace became almost palpable. Staff members found excuses to linger in corridors where they might catch a glimpse of the preparations. The press pack outside had swelled to unprecedented numbers, with journalists from around the world jostling for position. In the communications office, Jason Hartwell watched the social media feeds with growing concern. Somehow, and he suspected he knew how, given the palace's inability to keep secrets, word had leaked that something special was planned for tonight. Speculation was running wild, with Diana's name trending worldwide before the dinner had even begun. We've lost control of the narrative, Margaret said, showing him her tablet. Look at this. They're already comparing photos of Diana in various necklaces, trying to guess which one Kate might wear. Jason sighed. Then, we'll have to trust that the moment itself will speak louder than the speculation. Sometimes the best communication strategy is to let the story tell itself. Back in the royal apartments, the time had come for Kate to put on the necklace. She stood before the mirror in her dressing room, the champagne gown fitting perfectly, her hair styled in an elegant updo that would showcase the jewels. William entered carrying the familiar blue velvet case. "Ready?" he asked. Kate nodded, though her heart was racing. William opened the case, revealing the sapphire and diamond necklace in all its glory. Even having seen it before, Kate caught her breath at its beauty. With practiced hands, William fastened the necklace around her neck. As the weight of it settled against her skin, Kate felt a strange sense of calm descend. This was right. This was what Charles had meant. Not trying to be Diana, but honoring the past while being completely herself. "You look magnificent," William said softly, meeting her eyes in the mirror. Kate touched the necklace gently, feeling the cool stones beneath her fingers. "Thank you," she said, and they both knew she wasn't just thanking him for the compliment. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Emma's voice called out, "Your Royal Highnesses, it's time." William offered Kate his arm. Ready to make history, Kate took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and smiled. Ready. As they made their way through the palace corridors toward the blue drawing room where they would greet the French president, members of staff stopped in their tracks. The sight of Kate in the famous necklace was even more striking than anyone had anticipated. The champagne gown set off the blue sapphires perfectly, and Kate wore them with a confidence that was entirely her own. They paused just outside the drawing room, waiting for their cue to enter. Through the closed doors, they could hear the murmur of voices, the clink of glasses. In moments, they would step through those doors and into history. "Whatever happens," William whispered, "I'm proud of you." Kate squeezed his arm. "Together, always." The doors opened, and they stepped through. The reaction was immediate and electric. Conversations stopped mid-sentence as heads turned toward them. The French president's wife, elegant in designer black, actually gasped audibly. For a moment, The entire room seemed frozen, as if everyone was collectively holding their breath. Then, Charles appeared at their side, resplendent in his military dress uniform. "Monsieur le Président," he said smoothly in perfect French, "may I present my son and daughter-in-law, their Royal Highnesses the Prince and Princess of Wales." The formal greeting broke the spell, and the room came back to life, though Kate could feel every eye tracking to the necklace at her throat. The president, a seasoned diplomat, recovered quickly, complimenting Kate on her appearance with Gallic charm, while carefully not mentioning the significance of her jewelry. As they moved through the reception, greeting dignitaries and making small talk, Kate began to relax into the evening. The necklace, which had felt so heavy with meaning when she put it on, began to feel like what it truly was, a beautiful accessory that helped her do her job. It wasn't until they entered the state dining room for dinner that the full impact of the moment became clear. The official photographer, positioned to capture the royal party's entrance, took what would become one of the most iconic photos in royal history. Kate, radiant in champagne silk and sapphires, entering on William's arm, with Charles beside them, all three looking confident and unified. The dinner itself proceeded with the usual formal precision. Courses came and went, toasts were made, diplomatic niceties exchanged. But there was an undercurrent of excitement, a sense that something significant had shifted. During a lull between courses, the French president's wife leaned toward Kate. "Your necklace," she said in accented English. "It is the one from the famous photo, non? With the midnight dress." Kate nodded. "Yes, it is. You wear it beautifully," the woman said, "but differently. It is the same necklace, but tells a new story now." It was perhaps the most perceptive comment of the evening. Kate smiled gratefully. "That's very kind of you to say." "Not kind," the French woman replied. "True. In France, we understand the power of symbols. Tonight, you have taken a symbol of the past and made it speak to the future. C'est magnifique." As the evening progressed, Kate found herself thinking about Diana, wondering what she would have made of this moment. Would she have approved of the way the necklace was being used to bridge past and present? Would she have appreciated the careful balance between honoring her memory and moving forward? During the after-dinner reception, as guests mingled in the white drawing room, Charles made his way to Kate's side. They stood together for a moment, watching William engaged in animated conversation with the French foreign minister. "You've done splendidly," Charles said quietly. "Thank you for trusting me with this," Kate replied. Charles turned to look at her directly. "I didn't trust you with it, Catherine. You earned it. There's a difference." Before Kate could respond, he had moved away to speak with another guest, leaving her to ponder his words. The evening was drawing to a close when the moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. As the French delegation prepared to leave, they gathered in the grand entrance for the formal farewells. The photographers who had been permitted to capture this moment were ready, their cameras trained on the royal party. As Kate stood beside William, the sapphires catching the light from the chandeliers above, she felt the weight of the moment. Not just the physical weight of the necklace, but the weight of history, of expectation, of change. The cameras clicked furiously as the formal farewells were exchanged. Kate knew that by morning, these images would be on every front page, analyzed and discussed around the world. The necklace that had been hidden away for so long was back in the public eye, and, with it, a new chapter in the story of the British monarchy. As the French motorcade pulled away and the palace doors closed, Kate felt the tension of the evening finally begin to drain away. They had done it. The evening had been a success, both diplomatically and personally. "Well," William said as they made their way back to their apartments, "that's done it. By tomorrow, you'll be the most talked-about woman in the world." Kate touched the necklace one more time. "It's not about me," she said. "It's about showing that we can honor the past without being trapped by it." They were passing through the picture gallery when they encountered Charles again. He had removed his formal jacket and looked more relaxed than Kate had seen him all evening. "I wanted to thank you both," he said, surprising them with the directness of his emotion. "Tonight was important. More important than perhaps even I realized when I made the decision." "Papa," William began, but Charles held up a hand. No, let me say this. For too long, I allowed my own complicated feelings about the past to influence how we presented ourselves to the world. Tonight, Catherine, you showed us a different way. The necklace looked as beautiful on you as it ever did on Diana. But more than that, you made it yours. You gave it new life, new meaning. Kate felt tears threaten again. Royal life didn't often allow for such honest emotional exchanges, and Charles's words touched her deeply. The press tomorrow will be insufferable, of course, Charles continued with a wry smile. But that's their business. Our business is to move forward, to show that the monarchy can evolve while respecting its history. Tonight, we did that. He bid them good night and disappeared down the corridor, leaving William and Kate alone in the gallery, surrounded by portraits of monarchs past. He's right, you know, William said as they resumed walking. What you did tonight, it was brave. I just wore a necklace, Kate protested. No, William said firmly. You took something that had become almost mythical, something frozen in time, and you brought it back to life. You showed that we don't have to be afraid of Mum's memory, that we can celebrate it while still being ourselves. As they finally reached their apartment, Kate carefully removed the necklace, placing it back in its velvet case. Tomorrow, it would be returned to the vault, but tonight had changed its meaning forever. It was no longer just Diana's necklace. It was a symbol of continuity, of the monarchy's ability to honor its past while embracing its future. What do you think the headlines will be tomorrow? Kate asked as they prepared for bed, the events of the evening finally catching up with her. William grinned. Oh, I imagine something subtle and understated. Kate stuns and Dee's jewels, or Princess Catherine channels Diana at state dinner. The tabloids aren't known for their restraint. Kate groaned. The comparisons will be endless. Let them compare, William said. Anyone with eyes could see tonight that you weren't trying to be anyone but yourself, and that's what made it so powerful. As Kate finally laid down to sleep, still feeling the phantom weight of the necklace at her throat, she thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. From a girl in Berkshire to the Princess of Wales, wearing one of the most famous pieces of jewelry in the world, making history simply by being herself. Outside, London slept, unaware that in a few hours, the morning papers would carry the images that would spark 1,000 conversations. But inside the palace, all was quiet. The necklace was back in its vault, the guests were gone, and life returned to what passed for normal in the royal household. But something had changed. A line had been crossed, a statement made. The past had been honored, but the future had been claimed. And at the center of it all was a necklace, beautiful, historic, and finally freed from the weight of tragedy to become simply what it had always been meant to be, an adornment for a Princess of Wales, whoever she might be. The morning after the state dinner arrived with an explosion of media coverage that exceeded even the palace's worst fears. Kate woke to find William already up, sitting in their living room with newspapers spread across the coffee table, and his phone buzzing constantly with messages. How bad is it? Kate asked, wrapping her dressing gown around herself as she joined him. William looked up with a complicated expression. Define bad, he said. The photos are everywhere. Every major newspaper in the world has you on the front page. Social media has gone completely mad. Hashtag Kate's necklace is trending globally, and someone's already created a Wikipedia page about last night. Kate sank into the sofa beside him, picking up the Times. The front page featured a stunning photograph of her in the sapphires, but it was the headline that made her wince. The ghost of Diana. Kate resurrects royal past. They're calling it everything from a tribute to a provocation. William continued, scrolling through his phone. The Daily Mail has a 16-page special supplement. 16 pages, Kate. About a necklace. Before Kate could respond, Emma appeared in the doorway looking harried. Your Royal Highness, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Hartwell needs to speak with you urgently. He says the palace switchboard has crashed from the volume of calls. Kate and William exchanged glances. They had expected attention, but this was beyond anything they had anticipated. In the communications office, chaos reigned. Jason Hartwell stood in the center of the storm, fielding calls, and issuing directions with the skill of a general in battle. When he saw Kate and William enter, relief flooded his face. "Your Royal Highnesses," he began, then abandoned formality. "We have a situation. The reaction has been unprecedented. We've had interview requests from every major news outlet in the world. The palace website has crashed 3 times. And that's just the legitimate media." Margaret Shin looked up from her bank of computers. "The conspiracy theorists are having a field day. Everything from claims that this was a message to the Sussex camp to theories that the king is planning to abdicate." "Abdicate?" William said incredulously. "Because Kate wore a necklace?" "You underestimate the power of symbols, sir," Jason said grimly. "And this particular symbol has touched a nerve we didn't fully appreciate." Over the next hours, the palace machinery struggled to regain control of the narrative. Statements were drafted and redrafted, trying to strike the right tone between acknowledging the significance of the moment and downplaying any deeper meaning. But even as they worked to manage the public reaction, more serious concerns were emerging behind palace walls. An emergency meeting of senior courtiers had been called, and the mood was tense. In the grand conference room, Sir Robert Pembroke faced a room full of concerned faces. The traditionalists were out in force, led by Lady Victoria Pemberton, who had clearly not been satisfied by her conversation with the king. "This is exactly what we warned against," Lady Victoria was saying. "The dignity of the crown has been compromised for the sake of a photo opportunity." "With respect," Sir Robert replied, "His Majesty's decision has generated more positive engagement with the monarchy than anything in recent years. The younger demographic, Lord Ashworth interrupted, his voice dripping disdain, "should not be our primary concern. We are not a reality television show. We're the monarchy." The meeting continued in this vein for another hour, with the old guard expressing their displeasure and the modernizers defending the decision. What none of them knew was that Charles himself was watching the proceedings via a closed-circuit feed from his study, taking note of who said what. Meanwhile, Kate had retreated to her private office to deal with the personal fallout. Her phone had not stopped ringing. Friends, family, charity she patronized, all wanting to either congratulate her or express concern. Her mother called, sounding both proud and worried. "Darling, the photos are absolutely beautiful, but are you all right? This seems like more than anyone expected." "I'm fine, Mom," Kate assured her, though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. "It's just a bit overwhelming." "Your father says to tell you he's never seen you look more regal," Carol added. "And James wants to know if you can get him a date with the French president's daughter." Despite everything, Kate laughed. Trust her family to keep her grounded even in the midst of a royal crisis. As the day wore on, an unexpected development changed the entire complexion of the situation. A handwritten letter arrived at the palace, addressed simply to Catherine, Princess of Wales. The return address made the courier who delivered it do a double-take. It was from Earl Spencer, Diana's brother. Kate opened the letter with trembling hands, aware of the significance. Earl Spencer had been notably distant from the royal family since his sister's death, maintaining correct but cool relations. His opinion on her, wearing Diana's necklace, could either help calm the storm or inflame it further. The letter was brief but powerful. "Dear Catherine, I saw the photographs from last evening's state dinner and felt compelled to write. For too many years, my sister's possessions have been treated as relics, locked away as if they contained some curse rather than celebrating the vibrant woman who wore them. Seeing you in the sapphire necklace brought both tears and joy. Tears for the memories it evoked, but joy that Diana's beauty and grace live on in a new generation. You wore it not as an imitation, but as yourself, and in doing so, you honor my sister's memory more than any museum display ever could. Diana would have been thrilled to see her jewelry bringing joy and beauty to state occasions again. She would have been even more thrilled to see it worn by someone who clearly understands the weight of the role, but carries it with such natural dignity. Thank you for bringing life back to something that had become frozen in time." With admiration and respect, Charles Spencer, Kate read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face by the end. This unexpected support from Diana's family was more than she could have hoped for. She immediately showed it to William, who read it in silence. "We should release this," he said finally. "With Uncle Charles's permission, of course. This could change everything." And it did. Within hours of the Earl's letter being made public, with his consent, the narrative shifted dramatically. If Diana's own brother supported Kate wearing the necklace, who could object? The traditionalists found their position considerably weakened, and the public response became overwhelmingly positive. But the drama was far from over. That evening, as the palace tried to return to some semblance of normalcy, security cameras captured something that would add another layer to an already complex situation. Thomas Mitchell was reviewing the day's security footage when something caught his eye. It was from a camera in one of the lesser-used corridors of the palace, time-stamped from early that morning. The footage showed a figure in dark clothing near the vault where the jewels were kept. "Sarah," he called to his deputy, "come look at this." They watched as the figure, clearly trying to avoid cameras, made their way toward the vault. The person's face was obscured, but their movements were purposeful, familiar with the palace layout. "Someone who knows the blind spots," Sarah observed. "Staff, or someone who used to be staff," Thomas said grimly. He picked up his secure phone. "We need to check the vault immediately." Within minutes, a team was dispatched to inspect the royal vault. What they found sent shockwaves through the palace hierarchy. While all the major pieces were accounted for, several smaller items were missing. Pieces that hadn't been cataloged in the recent inventory, pieces that only someone with intimate knowledge of the collection would even know existed. An emergency meeting was convened in the king's study. Present were Charles, William, the Lord Chamberlain, and the head of security. The atmosphere was grim. "How is this possible?" Charles demanded. "The vault is supposed to be impenetrable." "Someone had inside knowledge," Thomas explained. They knew exactly when the security rotation would create a brief window, and they knew which pieces could be taken without immediate detection. "Inside knowledge suggests inside help," Williams said darkly. "Someone on staff?" "We're investigating all possibilities," Thomas assured them. "But this complicates things significantly. If word gets out that there was a security breach on the same night the princess wore Diana's necklace." He didn't need to finish the thought. They all understood the implications. The media would have a field day with theories about inside jobs, insurance fraud, or worse. Charles made a decision. Complete lockdown on this information. No one outside this room is to know until we have answers. And I want every second of footage from the last week reviewed. Someone saw something. As the meeting dispersed, William lingered with his father. "Do you think this is connected to Kate wearing the necklace?" he asked. Charles's expression was troubled. "I don't believe in coincidences, especially not in palaces. Someone knew the attention would be elsewhere, that our focus would be on managing the media reaction. They used it as cover." "Kate will blame herself," William said. "Then we must ensure she doesn't find out until we have answers," Charles replied. "She's handled enough for 1 week." But secrets in palaces have a way of revealing themselves. By the next morning, Kate had sensed something was wrong. William was distracted, taking calls in private, and leaving meetings with security that he claimed were routine. It was her lady's maid, Anna, who inadvertently revealed the truth. She arrived to help Kate dress looking flustered and mentioned offhandedly that the vault was temporarily closed for maintenance. Kate's sharp mind immediately made connections. The vault was never closed without advance notice. Something had happened. She confronted William that evening. "What's going on? And don't tell me it's nothing. I know when you're keeping something from me." William sighed, knowing he couldn't lie to her. He told her about the theft, watching as her face went pale. "This is my fault," she said immediately. "If I hadn't worn the necklace, if we hadn't created such a distraction—" "Stop," William said firmly. "This isn't your fault. Someone used the situation, yes, but they would have found another opportunity. This was planned." Over the following days, the investigation intensified. Security footage was analyzed frame by frame. Staff interviews were conducted discreetly. The palace lived under a cloud of suspicion that was almost worse than the media attention. Then came the breakthrough. Sarah Williams noticed something in footage from 3 days before the state dinner. A maintenance worker in an area they shouldn't have been, carrying equipment that didn't match any scheduled work. The figure's face was hidden, but their gait was distinctive. Cross-referencing with personnel records led them to a name: Marcus Henderson, a former palace electrician who had been let go 6 months earlier in a routine staff reduction. He had maintained his security credentials through what appeared to be administrative oversight or deliberate manipulation. The police were brought in discreetly, and within 48 hours, Henderson was in custody. The stolen pieces were recovered from a storage unit in South London, along with evidence of a broader plan to sell them to private collectors abroad. Under interrogation, Henderson revealed his motivations, a combination of financial desperation and resentment at his dismissal. He had spent months planning the heist, waiting for the perfect moment when palace attention would be elsewhere. The state dinner, with its focus on Kate and the necklace, had provided exactly that. "I knew everyone would be watching her," he told investigators. "The security, the staff, the media, all eyes on the princess. No one would notice a maintenance worker doing his job." The recovery of the jewels allowed the palace to breathe a collective sigh of relief. Charles decided against pressing charges publicly, not wanting to advertise the security breach. Instead, Henderson was quietly prosecuted, and the entire security system underwent a comprehensive review. For Kate, the revelation brought mixed emotions. Relief that the theft wasn't directly connected to her wearing the necklace, but also a sobering reminder of how every action in royal life had ripple effects beyond what could be anticipated. A week after the theft was resolved, Kate found herself back in the vault, this time accompanied by the crown jeweler for a routine inspection. The sapphire necklace was back in its case, looking as serene as ever, giving no hint of the drama it had sparked. "It's quite something, isn't it?" the crown jeweler, Mrs. Patricia Hartwell, said, noticing Kate's gaze. "The stories these pieces could tell if they could speak." "I think they do speak, in their way," Kate replied. "We just have to be careful how we listen." Mrs. Hartwell smiled. "Wise words, Your Royal Highness. That necklace has seen triumph and tragedy, joy and sorrow. Now it's seen a new chapter, one of continuity and courage." As they continued the inspection, Kate's phone buzzed with a message from William. "Papa wants to see us. Says he has something important to discuss." Kate excused herself and made her way to Charles's study, where she found William already waiting. Charles stood by the window, his back to them, seemingly lost in thought. "Ah, Catherine," he said, turning as she entered. "Good. I wanted to speak to you both about something that's been on my mind since the dinner." He gestured for them to sit, then took his own seat behind the desk. "The reaction to your wearing Diana's necklace has been instructive. It's shown me something I should have recognized long ago." Kate and William exchanged glances, unsure where this was leading. "For too long," Charles continued, "we've treated the past as something to be carefully managed, controlled, kept at arm's length. But what you did, Catherine, by wearing that necklace with such grace and confidence, showed me a different way. You honored the past while claiming your own present. It was a masterstroke, even if unintended." "Thank you, Your Majesty," Kate said, still uncertain. Charles smiled. "I'm not finished. The theft, unfortunate as it was, also revealed something. Our focus on protecting these artifacts has perhaps overshadowed their purpose. They're meant to be worn, to be seen, to connect us with our people and our history." He opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. "I've made a decision. I'm establishing a new protocol for the use of the royal jewelry collection. Pieces that have been locked away will be brought back into regular rotation. You, Catherine, will have first choice for all state occasions." Kate's eyes widened. This was a significant vote of confidence, a formal acknowledgement of her place in the royal hierarchy. "Furthermore," Charles continued, "I'm creating a new position, Keeper of the Queen's Jewels. It will be your responsibility to oversee the collection, to decide which pieces are worn when, to ensure they serve their purpose of enhancing the monarchy's connection with the people." "Papa," William started. That's traditionally been a role held by various courtiers and committees. Charles finished. Yes, I know, but traditions must sometimes evolve. Catherine has shown she understands the power and responsibility of these pieces. Who better to oversee them? Kate was speechless. This was more than just permission to wear jewelry. It was a fundamental shift in how the royal collection would be managed. I'm honored, Your Majesty, she finally managed. But are you certain? There will be resistance. Charles's smile turned slightly mischievous. Oh, I'm counting on it. Nothing like a bit of resistance to prove we're moving in the right direction. Besides, after the events of the past week, I think we've seen that you can handle whatever comes your way. As they left Charles's study, Kate's mind was reeling. In the space of 2 weeks, she had gone from nervously touching Diana's necklace in a vault to being appointed guardian of the entire royal jewelry collection. You realize what this means? William said as they walked. You'll have access to everything. The Queen's tiaras, the Indian collection, pieces that haven't been seen in public for decades. It's overwhelming, Kate admitted, but also exciting. Think of the history we could share, the connections we could make. Each piece has a story. And now you get to write the next chapters, William said, taking her hand. That evening, as news of Kate's appointment spread through the palace, reactions were predictably mixed. The modernizers saw it as a brilliant move, consolidating control of an important symbolic resource under someone who had proven she understood its power. The traditionalists grumbled about breaks with protocol and the dangers of change. But in her apartment, Kate sat with a cup of tea and a different letter, this one from her daughter, Charlotte, who was away at school. In careful, childish handwriting, Charlotte had written, Dear Mummy, I saw your picture in a newspaper wearing the beautiful necklace. My teacher said it used to belong to Granny Diana. You look like a real princess. I'm proud of you. Love, Charlotte. Kate smiled, tears pricking her eyes. In the end, this was what mattered, not the politics or the protocol, but the simple fact that her daughter was proud of her. The weight of the sapphire necklace, both literal and metaphorical, suddenly seemed much lighter. As she prepared for bed, Kate reflected on the whirlwind of the past 2 weeks. What had started as a simple task, selecting jewelry for a state dinner, had become a defining moment in her royal journey. She had touched Diana's necklace, and, in doing so, had touched something much deeper, the power of symbols to bridge past and present to honor memory while creating new meaning. The palace was quiet now, the drama of the past days settling into history. But Kate knew this was just the beginning. With her new role as keeper of the Queen's jewels, she would have many more opportunities to bring these treasures into the light, to share their stories, to connect the monarchy with the people in ways both traditional and innovative. Tomorrow, she would begin the formal process of cataloging the collection, learning the history of each piece, planning how they might be used in the future. It would be a massive undertaking, but she felt ready for the challenge. As she turned off the lights, Kate's last thought was of the sapphire necklace, resting peacefully in its vault. It had sparked a revolution of sorts, a small but significant shift in how the monarchy related to its past. And it had all started with a simple touch, a moment of connection between a modern princess and the enduring legacy of the one who came before. The future stretched ahead, full of possibilities. Kate smiled in the darkness. She was ready for whatever came next.